Camp season, it's finally here, and we're so pumped alongside the Hall of Famer Mike O'Hara and Tim Twentyman, who's growing a fabulous camp beard down there. I'm Dannie Rogers. We're pumped to have you back here in studio. Guys, which camp anniversary are you celebrating this season?
I'll let Tim go first.
This is 13 for me, so it's not quite as many as the man in the middle here. What are you at, Mike? Is this 40, 45?
I'm at the next one.
I think it's 45. It was 77, folks, if I am correct, when Mike started on the B. So this is happy number 45. So you've seen quite a few. And Dannie, we saw your video. Welcome, first and foremost.
Thank you.
We saw your video that you put up this morning, a little bit about you. How fun. This is your first, but to be able just to kind of get the job and jump right into it. You excited?
This is my rookie season. We're in the acclimation period of camp right now, which is awesome because I'm in my acclimation period as well. Getting all the names down, getting faces, putting names to the faces, and just figuring out how everything kind of works on this level.
You'll love camp. Camp is the best because there's just so many storylines. There's so much going on between the competition battles and the roster spots and the preseason games and 2-hour practices that you get to watch all of. It's just, it's from what we do, training camp, in my perspective, is one of the best times. There's so much to write about and talk about, which is great.
Not to get into the age thing about it, but no matter when you jumped on this merry-go-round, whether it was 1977 for me or this year for you, there's one thing about this that never changes. There are 53 jobs available, and there are 90 guys out there who want them, and it makes for some terrific competition. And it's, from our standpoint, since we're not, our jobs aren't at stake, but it's fun just to go through it and see, older guys trying to hang on for more than, 2 more years, young guys trying to make the roster, and then, high draft picks just trying to come in and prove who they are. But there's a really cool dynamic to the whole thing.
There sure is. There's a whole lot going on, and there's a new terminology that head coach Dan Campbell used in one of his pressers this past week during training camp is pajama warrior.
I mean, there's some pajama warriors that are unbelievable, but you guys know it happens every year.
Who wants to do the honors of explaining to the people who missed it what a pajama warrior is?
I'll take that one. Well, we're in the acclimation period, and when Mike started in 1977, it was 2-a-days in the Oklahoma drill right to begin with, full pads. There was none of this acclimation period, but it's today's NFL, and what it basically is the NFL has given them 4 days of an acclimation period, basically, and so it's helmets, it's non-padded, non-contact. It kind of looks like the OTAs and the minicamp practices from the springtime, but they'll get 4 days of that. They kind of get their legs under them, and the pajama warrior reference was, he was talking about a guy who could look great out here. He could be a terrific athlete, but then you put on the pads and he kind of goes away. And, the other side of it is, you get a guy who maybe isn't the best athlete, but you put the pads on and that guy just knows how to play football. And so that was the reference. And so we're in this kind of acclimation period, but next week, Monday, Tuesday, I think the pads come on and then it starts getting real around here.
Something everyone always looks forward to is seeing how the rookies are panning out so far here in training camp. And 3 that we really want to specifically mention here. On the defensive end, you have Aleem McNeill and Derek Barnes. And then on the offensive end, you have Penei Sewell. What have you seen from those 3 rookies so far here in training camp?
Well, there's certainly, when you're talking about Penei and Aleem, there's no kid gloves. There's no easing it in. We saw the first acclimation period day, and Aleem was the starting nose tackle with the first team defense. And look, he's a big, powerful guy, their 3rd-round draft pick. And, Brad Holmes talked about how athletic he was. And we had Frank Ragnow yesterday who spoke to the media after practice, and I asked him about Aleem McNeill being there, first team reps right across from him. He said, that guy's big. And he said he's really big, but he moves really well for a guy that size. So I'm not surprised that Aleem is getting some of those first team reps right away. I think he fits what they want to do in the middle. He's big, he's physical, he can take on blocks, but he's disruptive. They want to play on the other side of the football. They want to be in the offensive backfield. I think he's a guy that can do that. And then we all expected Penei just to kind of pop in there right at right tackle and be with the first team right away. But I think those 2 are 2 that have kind of jumped out to me that I think you knew Penei was going to be there. I think people were a little bit surprised maybe with Aleem being right there with the first team at nose tackle, first day, first team defense. We'll see how that develops through camp. But I know you've got your eye on Derek, too.
I got my eye on Derek Barnes, but before I get to that, and Tim asked me, and we do this, who's remind you of game? And you asked me, does it remind you of Jerry Ball?
Yeah.
And third round pick, both of them. Jerry Ball here was a nose tackle for the Detroit Lions, got drafted in 1987, 3rd rounder out of SMU, became a Pro Bowl player, and really very close to a face of the franchise player. It's hard for a defensive player to do that, but Does he remind me? Not quite in the same build, but the same possibilities that you see for him. Jerry was a little rounder. This kid is built more like a refrigerator. And maybe we'll call him the refrigerator one of these days, like the old refrigerator Perry. Derek Barnes, 4th round draft pick out of Purdue, a very versatile player in college. Dannie, he was a pass rusher through his junior year, was moved to middle linebacker. And Big Ten, it's hard-nosed football, as you know, from being in the Midwest, and he really fit that. One thing I'm a little surprised is we haven't seen more of him. He's been more of a second unit guy now. Maybe they're moving him in, maybe he's got things. Maybe this is for him, both physically and mentally, an acclimation period. Because if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't really have it down, you're going to run into people, you're going to get people in it, you got to make calls and all that. And we'll see how it goes. But look, they traded up in the 4th round for a reason to get him, and I think we'll see that reason unfold soon enough.
Well, and to that point too, Mike, Dan Campbell talked today. He was asked about position battles, which ones he's looking at. He said safety. He said the inside linebacker spot, and Barnes is going to be that stacked inside linebacker. So he's probably one of those guys that Dan was talking about with Jelani Tavai and Jamie Collins Sr. and Anzalone and those guys. He's really looking forward to that competition and how it develops. So I think Derek Barnes is going to be very much in that mix as well.
Yeah, and to both, Jelani Tavai, when he was showed up at minicamp and the OTAs, he was noticeably smaller. He was a 2nd round pick 2 years ago and hasn't quite fulfilled that draft position. But I'm just watching him. He still looks lean. He looks like he can move, and he looks like he can thump. It's a technical term.
One thing different about this defense, and we can talk about it with Aleem, we can talk about it with Derek, even with Penny to a sense in terms of athleticism, is gone are the days where they want that big linebacker that can't run. It's all about speed with Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell. They said this offseason, look, we want guys that could run, sideline to sideline. Derek's that kind of guy. So, again, I think he'll be in the mix when it's all said and done. When we get past the acclimation, the pads are on, and we start playing football.
You just mentioned defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. We're learning that during each practice, towards the beginning, his defense has to do 40. Are they down-ups or up-downs? I've seen both.
That's a great question.
Well, I'll never tell you because I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I think you have to go down. You start up, right? So you go down
then up. And I've seen up-down. All right. Besides the point, he wants his side of the ball to do 40 down-ups towards the beginning of each practice. You'll see head coach Dan Campbell out there doing down-ups too with them. It was glorious to see. What kind of energy is that injecting into this team here right off the bat?
Well, a lot. I think I watched it today, and the whole defense did them yesterday all at the same time. And like you said, Glenn and Dan Campbell, they mixed in there and did them. But today was a little different. I think I was noticing I couldn't quite see because they were in a circle, but some players started doing it, and the other guys on the outside were counting. Yeah. And then some more guys joined in and did it. And then some more guys joined in, and before you knew it, all the defense was in a circle, doing them, counting them down, and then they got done with it, and they were all, high-fiving each other. And it's that kind of that camaraderie thing. It's about what we talked about when they were doing competitions in the spring, and liven up practice a little bit, and having those competitive periods. It's just another way to do something as a team. One, it's productive, it's helpful, you're getting in shape, but it's something that you do as a defense too, and you can have fun with it. And today was a great example of it, kind of hyping up that defense and getting them ready for practice.
I think there's another part of it too, and for you readers and listeners out there and viewers out there, Danny, we've heard the players talk about the number of assistant coaches that Dan Campbell has on his staff, including himself, who have National Football League playing experience. I mean, extensive experience, 8, 10, 12. Aaron Glenn, 15 years played in the National Football League. And what you hear over and over, and sort of the same theme, maybe spoken a different way by different players, is they know what it's like. They've been there. They've been on the bubble. They've played. They've been in tough games. They've been in tough situations. They've fought for their job. They've won jobs. They've played big games. And I think there's some value to that now. The other side of that, these guys are coaches now. They didn't just go out and give me 8 ex-players and we're going to see how it works out. No, these guys all have extensive quality coaching experience too. So I think it's a terrific blend when you're dealing with a person, even if he's your boss, but he knows how you feel because he felt that way himself.
Now on this defense, Aaron Glenn, you'll hear people call him AG. We say AG, Aaron Glenn. Who needs to be really the anchor and the go-to leader on Aaron Glenn's defense?
Wow.
That's a good one.
Well, I think that's a good question. I think maybe Michael Brockers for starters, because he's been in the league. He's played 9 years, and he was a first-round draft pick out of LSU, 14th overall. I didn't remember this. I just looked it up. Okay, but he played he's played 9 years with the Los Angeles and St. Louis Rams, and he's had just a variety of experience. He had the franchise relocate after 5 years. He was a first-round pick. He was a starter coming out. He's been a 9-year starter in the National Football League. He's been durable. He's been productive. He's only missed 6 games in his career, and I think all his experience he's had. He's a guy that players can go and ask him what about, and he'll know something about it. From the bad times, they had 13 consecutive seasons without a winning record with the Rams. Then all of a sudden they caught fire, and they've had 4 straight winning seasons, including a trip to the Super Bowl. So I say Michael Brockers is a guy that you can really lead on. The rest of the team, really, quite frankly, is so young. Now, maybe Trey Flowers, with his experience with the Patriots, but I think Brockers is a guy who brings a lot to the table.
I'm going to take it one step further, and I'm going to include Brockers, but I'm also going to include Romeo Okwara and Trey Flowers and whoever is that nose tackle, Lee McNeil or whoever that is. I think it's really that front 4. Or the front 3 down lineman with an outside linebacker. It's going to be a base 3-4. But I think it's those front guys. I mean, this was a team last year that got 24 sacks. It just wasn't enough. They didn't affect the quarterback enough. And coaches will talk all the time about the marriage between the pass rush and coverage. I mean, these tight ends, these running backs, these wide receivers, they're too good now. I mean, you're talking about elite athletes. You can't ask the Jeff Okudas and Amani Oriwaris and all these guys to guard these guys for 3 or cover these guys for 3-4 seconds. You just can't do it. You can't ask Jalen Ramsey to do it. Maybe that's a bad example, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
It's so hard to do. I just think they need so much more production from the front of that defense. They have to apply pressure. It doesn't have to be sacks all the time, too. It can be quarterback hurries. It can be getting that quarterback off his spot. I mean, Romeo Okwara was a terrific example. He had 10 sacks, but he had 71 affected quarterback plays if you count quarterback knockdowns and hurries and the sacks. I mean, that's a lot of production. I think you got it from him, but not so much anyone else. I think when you talk about the Brockers and the Flowers and the Julian Okwara, somebody needs to step up and be that guy opposite Romeo. And I just think those guys up front really have to establish themselves on the other side of the line of scrimmage. They have to affect the passer a little bit more, help those guys in the back 7 out. And I think overall you're a better defense if you can do that. So I would put the onus on really all those guys up front to be better this year.
That quarterback affected stat is a little exotic for me, but one that isn't exotic at all. And maybe it's so simple even I can relate to it, but in each of the last 2 years, the Lions have had 7 interceptions. There are teams that have had, that's 14 in 2 years. There are teams that have had more than that in 1 year. That shows me a lot of things. And to Tim's other point, look, the quarterback in this era, with the way they play in space, you can pat and throw. If you can pat it twice, pat it 3 times, you got no chance in a secondary.
On the offensive end, let's talk about it. Offensive coordinator Anthony Lynn is guiding Jared Goff and a mainly veteran offensive line. Have you seen any cohesion among Jared Goff and his offensive line so far yet?
Well, I think so. I think when you look at Jared Goff's time with the Rams, when he was a Pro Bowler in 2016, 2017, go look at those offensive line statistics. Go look at how many injuries they suffered up front, how many games those guys started and played together. And I think there's a very easy correlation between Jared Goff playing some of his best football and having an offensive line that was top 5 in the NFL, was healthy, played together, and that I think those two really played well off each other. And when you look at the situation here in Detroit, Detroit's next Penei Sewell, number 7 overall, they had him one of their top guys in the draft. They get him at number 7. And that really solidifies that offensive line. You got Taylor Decker, who's coming off probably his best season. You've got Frank Ragnow, who's a Pro Bowler. He's probably the best center in football. Jonas Jackson played pretty good as a rookie all 16 games. And, Big V, I think they've got big plans for him now that he's healthy. I think that on paper is the strength of this football team. And so now if you can run the football a little bit and you can protect your quarterback, I think now you're off and running as an offense. Offensive football all starts up front, in my opinion. It doesn't matter how good your running back, your receivers, your quarterback. If you don't have an offensive line, and Patrick Mahomes will tell you this if you watch the Super Bowl, it really doesn't matter. If you can't have the time to get the ball to your weapons, it doesn't matter what your weapons are. And so it really starts up front. I think the Lions have a really good situation up front. And I have seen some cohesion, Danny, to your question, between Jared Goff and this offensive line. I think he understands he's got time to throw. I think he's very comfortable in play action. That's where he's really at his best, in my opinion, just watching some of the film on him from his past years. And so I think he's in a good situation. I think he really likes what he's got in front of him.
When it gets down to the Christmas season, too, and this is more to Tim's point, who gets the gifts from the quarterback? The offensive line. The way it is. Take care of my boys, you take care of me. And I think really the way the game has changed too. It used to be protect the quarterback's blind side with everything you have, but now they got the speed rushers coming off the right side too. That's where I think you'll even get even a greater dividend that you might have had with Penei Sewell, because he's going to lock down that right side. I have no doubt about that. I mean, I think right now they've got one of the future stars of the National Football League, that right tackle in Sewell. But I think if you can just balance that all out, and then the quarterback with a good center can move up, and actually move up, not be looking at his shoe top, see who's coming. You've really got something going for you. I think the possibilities are there now. They've got to be probabilities.
And to your point too, Mike, what would a quarterback rather do? I mean, quarterbacks are going to want to sling it 50 times a game, but
of course
they like to be being able to turn around, hand that football off, not get hit, and watch a running back run down the field for a first down too, and that's demoralizing to a defense. So if your offensive line now, you can start to build a run game, which we haven't had here in decades really, at least consistently. And so now if you could build the offensive line, you can start to do that. That's a quarterback's best friend too. So I think it just all works together. It all starts up front.
Remember the Lions years ago hired a guy named Lynn Dickey, who was the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, and after he retired, they hired him as a part-time assistant coach. And somebody asked him, what's the secret to playing quarterback? And he says, if you can hand off, you can throw the ball 16 times and hand off, you're going to win. Well, now it's more like 32. But there is a formula there that'll win games for you.
Let's help the Lions fans out a little bit when they come to training camp. If they want to see a nice, long, and explosive play out there on offense, what target should their eyes be on?
Well, I'll take DeAndre Swift because he gets it different ways. He can run it, he can catch it, and you can do it in a variety of ways. You can line up in the backfield, line up in the slot. I think you're seeing really a budding young star in Swift.
I'm going to say T.J. Hawkinson.
I set that up for you.
You did. You put it right on a tee. I'm just going to knock it right down the fairway there. He was obviously terrific last year in Pro Bowl season, kind of his breakout. But he's different this offseason. He's a little bit different. I think he's having fun playing football again. He's kind of let loose a little bit. I think he's built a really good rapport with Goff in the spring. I thought he was one of his favorite targets. And so should I do like early season predictions? You want to like an early prediction thing?
Well, it's not even the season yet. It's not even
early. I
early.
think T.J. Hawkinson has been so good this offseason that I would not be surprised if T.J. Hawkinson leads the team in targets, catches, and touchdown receptions this year.
Oh, I'd agree with that.
That's how good I think he is. That's how big a big part of this offense he's going to be. And so I think this is going to be a huge year. I think he ascends into that Darren Waller, Travis Kelce type category where he's one of the best tight ends.
Yeah, I was standing next to Lomas Brown during one of the first couple of practices, and he said, look, he looks even leaner than he did a year ago. He said he wasn't fat, but he was just a little big, and he thinks he's going to be even better this year now. And I think we ought to add one other thing about the offensive line. We're talking about the top 5. I think they have 7 or 8 guys who can play in the National Football League.
Depth.
Now,
you're going to need it.
Yeah.
So much to digest here. We know it's really early in training camp, but we just wanted to give our quick analysis and catch you up on what's all been happening so far. Saturday, July 31st will be the first time fans will be able to come out to Allen Park and watch a practice. It'll be just season ticket holders. However, you've got about 10 more opportunities out after that. If you want to come out and watch these Lions get to work, we'll see you there, Lions fans.